What's going on, college football fans? Welcome into the Fan Addict on the Fan Addict Sports Network, where we talk college football all the time, man. It's your boy, Coach I, and I am here with the Stat Guy. What's going on, Stat Guy?
Hey, what's going on, man? You see it. We in here talking about some ACC, the little brother that could, but hey, man, we still gonna do our best and give the fans what they want.
That's right. We're talking win totals today. That's right, man. So let's go
Yeah,
ahead and get into it.
the fanatic. Where we keep it 100, keep it real. That's the only way we know how to be. Talking that sports talk. You know what I'm saying? Straight out of South Carolina, upstate, A64. Yeah, the FANATTIC. The fanatic where we keep it OG. We talking sports, so I call what
All
I
right,
see.
man. As we said, man, we talking ACC win totals. If you've been paying attention to the channel, we did the SEC East, SEC West. We did 2 videos for the Pac-12. Now we're on to the ACC. And if you are new to the channel, man, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, man, so you can get this college football content, man. Listen, I am a dog fan and he's a South Carolina fan, but we talk all college football. We follow certain teams and then talk about big games all around the country, regardless of who the team is. So, hey, man, if you want that content, help us spread it to other people, man. All right, we're going to jump right into this thing. For those that don't know about win totals, Vegas releases win totals for every team. So we do the Power Five, but you get a point for a win, you get a half for a toss up, and you don't get anything for a loss. That's why when you see the win totals, sometimes you may see a half, like 5.5 or 10.5. They're basically trying to put a number out there so you can know, hey, if it's 5.5, I want to bet that they're going to win 6 games and win the money, or I want to bet that they're going to win 5 games and win the money. All right. Disclaimer: we are not betting specialists, so please do not take our advice and put the house on it, because if you lose it, it's not on Coach I and the Stat Guy. Let's go. All right, man. First up, man, is Boston College, man. Boston College, man. Boston College is tricky. Uh, they lost their quarterback, Phil Dracover. He's at Pitt now, man, and it's not like they were super good last year. So let's go ahead and get into it, man. All right. First up, they got Northern Illinois at home. I got that as a win.
I'm gonna give them the dub.
All right. And then they got Holy Cross at home. I'm going to give them the win.
You know that's funny, man. Holy Cross has beat some teams in the last 20 years or so, but I am gonna give them the full outright win. Go Eagles.
All right. They got FSU at home. Florida State. I am giving them the loss there.
Yeah, I gave them the outright loss as well. I think Florida State offensively is going to be too much.
That's right. Traveling to Louisville the following week, I give them a loss right there as well. I think Louisville is going to surprise some people with how they performed this year.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of in the same boat. I really think Louisville is an under the radar kind of low key good team that maybe people are going to sleep on. So I gave them the loss.
All right. Then they come back home and take on University of Virginia. I got that as a push, so that's a half.
Oh man, you dirty! I gave them the outright win against Virginia.
Yeah, both of them trying to look to see who's gonna step up at quarterback, because Brendan Armstrong went down to North Carolina State from Virginia, so they both trying to replace their quarterback, and it's at home, so half. But they go to Army the following week. I got them as a win. I don't think it's gonna be a blowout win. I think it'll be tough, but I think Boston College will beat Army.
I gave them the push there against Army. Those military schools are always difficult to play. It's on the road, so I gave them the path.
All right. After an off week, they take on Georgia Tech in Atlanta, and I gave them that outright win here.
I gave them a half on the road.
All right. They come back and UConn at home. Side note, UConn does play like 3 or 4 ACC teams this year. They're getting that money, man. But at home against UConn, I got them with the outright win.
Yeah, you know, it wasn't too far removed that UConn had been, like 2 years without a win in football. I gave them the outright win as well.
All right. Then they go to Syracuse. That's a half.
I actually gave them the outright loss up in the dome.
Okay. And then they got Virginia Tech at home, who, when they first came to the ACC, they were, a force in the coastal. Now there's no divisions, and as of late, man, we just don't know what to think of Virginia Tech. I got it as a half. I think that's a toss-up game.
I gave them the half as well, just because it's at home.
Okay, and then they travel to Pitt. I gave them the outright loss. Pitt's one of these teams. Actually, since 2000 has been in the top 15 as far as total wins since 2000, and I think they'll go to Pitt and take a L.
Yeah, I finished them off with outright loss as well.
And then Miami at home to finish the season. I know Cristobal hasn't, been the splash that everybody thought he was going to be, but I think he's got enough to definitely beat Pitt. I mean, Boston College.
Yeah, I know Miami isn't exactly where they want to be, but I think they're better right now than where Boston College is. So I have that as a loss as well for BC.
All right, so total that up, and I got 6.5 wins for Boston College. What do you have?
I was at 5.5, and I'm on the money with Vegas, 5.5.
5.5. I was a little bit more generous. All right, on to one of the teams that I think will be playing for the ACC title at the end of the year, and that is Clemson. They have pretty much owned the ACC for the most part outside of 1 or 2 years. All right, man. They take on Duke at Duke the first weekend. It's on that month. It's on Labor Day night, man, at 8 o'clock at Duke. And I know Duke had a good year last year, and I think they bring back their quarterback, but I just don't think Duke can do it 2 years in a row as far as the season that they had last year. And I got Clemson with the outright win.
Man, look, before the fans get my mention, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pick Clemson to go 0-12, though the South Carolina Gamecock in me wanted to. But I will be honest, I think this is a tricky game. Cade getting his first full start, obviously started the bowl game, but his first full start, I gave him the half at Duke. I think this could be tricky for him.
All right. And then they come home, Charleston Southern, that's a win.
Win.
Florida Atlantic, that's a win.
Win.
And then they got the matchup at home against Florida State, which Florida State hasn't beaten them in a while. I think this is the year, especially early on, where they're still figuring some things out at Clemson, and Florida State returns a lot. I think this is a half. I think Florida State has a good chance to go to Clemson and win this game.
I do truly believe that Florida State's going to beat Clemson, but I put this down at a half. It is in Memorial Stadium, Death Valley, so I definitely at least gave it a half. But my heart of hearts, I feel Florida State's going to win it.
All right, and this could be the first of two matchups between these two teams, but we'll see about that later on down the line. At Syracuse, they have had some trouble here or there at Syracuse, but not as much as I think people put on. I think they take care of business. Syracuse is reeling right now, and they get the win.
I actually gave this a half. Playing in the Dome is weird. I know the last time they beat them up there, it was a Friday night game, which always is weird for these big conferences to play Friday night games and stuff. But I believe that Syracuse might have something waiting for them up in the Dome, so I gave them the half there.
Okay, and then Wake Forest back at home the next week. I got Clemson with the outright win. Wake did play them pretty tough the last couple of years, but they don't have Sam Hartman or those wide receiver NFL talent type dudes, and I think they're going to struggle this year. So I got Clemson with the outright win.
I gave Clemson the full win here.
All right, they're off, and then they go to Miami. I got this as a half just because it's on the road, and maybe by this time in the season, Cristobal will have, second year is always the best, one of the better years for new coaches. So I gave this a half, even though I think Clemson should be favored in this game.
I actually gave Clemson the outright win here. I think that you're looking at a Miami that hasn't quite gotten to where they want to be, and I think by this point in the year, Clemson's going to know who they are and be able to roll a little bit.
All right, and then they travel to NC State, who is almost like their nemesis, but they replaced their quarterback. Devin Leary goes to Kentucky, and they bring in Brendan Armstrong. We'll see if they can get it together. Dave Doran is one of the better coaches in the ACC, so I got this as a half.
Not gonna lie, this is a fun game. It's the Textile Bowl. Definitely an underrated rivalry in all of college football. But I gave Clemson the outright win.
Yeah, especially Clemson fans just don't like Dave Doran. I don't know so what's going on, but and then you got Notre Dame at home. Always a good matchup. Notre Dame got Clemson last year pretty handily. I think Clemson is going to be ready for them, but Marcus Freeman is doing a good job at Notre Dame. Great recruiting. He's got Sam Hartman now, who knows about Clemson as well. So I gave this game a half.
Yeah, I gave it a half as well. It being at home could really help, but I think Notre Dame's a darn good football team this year. I think this is going to be a really good game to watch.
All right, and then they got Georgia Tech at home. That's a win.
Win.
And then North Carolina at home, that's a win.
Win.
And then they go on the road to Columbia to take on South Carolina. South Carolina did show that they can beat Clemson, even in Clemson last year. I think that gave them a little confidence. So I'm going to give them a half here.
And for those that have already watched SEC video, you know I'm a true Gamecock homer, and I give Clemson that outright L coming to Willie B.
All right, there it is. The total for Clemson, I gave them 9.5.
And I gave him 9, which I thought I was pretty proud of myself for giving Clemson that many wins. And you're right on with Vegas. Vegas has them at 9.5.
There it is. I think it's going to depend a lot upon Cade and how that defense comes together. They definitely have the talent. That's not the question. One of the best, if not the best, linebacker room, middle inside linebacker room in the nation. So we'll see how that all plays out. Now, man, on to Duke, man. So Duke, like we said just a minute ago, they're taking on Clemson at home Labor Day night. I got that, just like we said just a minute ago, I got that as a loss for Duke.
And I gave him the half.
All right, and then they follow that up by playing the Lafayette Leopards. So I think Duke can squeeze that one out. I gave that one a win.
Straight up dub.
All right, and then they take on Northwestern at home. I gave this a half because Northwestern likes to give people fits, man.
Listen, man, Northwestern won one game last year, and it was against Nebraska. So count that for what it is. That's an outright win for Duke.
Hey, they made it tough in the first like 3.5 to 2.5, 3/4 against Ohio State. So hey, look, man. Like I said, I think Duke's going to take a step back this year. Okay, the next week they're at UConn. I gave them the outright win there.
Win.
And then they got Notre Dame at home. That's a loss.
Loss.
Then they're off, and then they got NC State at home. One of the the triangle teams. I gave this a half just because they're at home.
I gave this the push as well.
And then they're at Florida State. I gave them the loss there.
Loss.
At Louisville, I gave them a loss there.
Loss.
And then they play Wake Forest, another one they get at home from the triangle area. So I gave this a push.
I gave them a half as well.
And then the trifecta, they play at North Carolina. This is on the road, but we all know how North Carolina kind of fizzes out at the end of the year. I gave this a half.
I gave it a half as well. Rivalry game. Don't matter home or away. It's going to be a good game.
Yeah, and then they travel to Virginia, who I don't think is going to be very good at all. So I actually gave them the outright win here.
I gave them the win as well.
And then they finish the season off with Pitt, who I think is a very good, well-coached team, and Pitt will run through them, I think, at this point in the game. So I gave Duke the loss here.
Is that at Duke or is that at Pittsburgh?
That's you're right. That is home at Duke.
I gave them the half, just because it's at home to end the year.
All right.
Bowl eligibility might be on the line, maybe something to play for.
Yeah. So I just want to take the time, man. Hey, man, y'all make sure y'all comment down in the comments, man. Let us know when we off or you think differently. Also, put if we differ in our opinions, make sure to point out who your comment is for, the stat guy or Coach I. So I got Duke at 5 wins.
And I had him at 6.5, and I was dead money with Vegas 6.5.
There it is. I'm a little bit low on Duke. Okay. All right. Next up, man, we got Florida State, the other team that I think will contend for the ACC. I think Florida State is riding a, pretty hot, warm, temperatured season coming off of last year. I think they got a lot of the pieces in place. We'll see how they can follow it up. They start out with LSU. It's in Florida this time, so I still gave this a half. I think this is a critical game, as I stated in the SEC video that we did. The loser here is a tall slope trying to get back to the college football playoffs after this, because both teams have to play what I think are college football playoff contenders.
Yeah, no, this is going to be an exciting game, and what a weird turn Florida State season took last year after beating LSU and then kind of faltering before picking it up down the stretch. I gave this a push as well. It is in Florida this time, but this is a make it or break. I mean, this could catapult them into some serious playoff talk after week 1, but I gave this a push.
That's right. The next 2 games, Southern Miss and at Boston College, I gave Florida State the wins. And then they follow that up at Clemson. We just talked about that. I gave that a half.
And
then after an off week, Listen, man, this next 4-game stretch, I don't think they play any competitive teams as far as they're concerned. Virginia Tech at home, Syracuse at home, Duke at home, and Wake Forest on the road. I gave them all wins for those.
I had them all wins as well.
And then at Pitt, again, Pitt is a good team. Another one of those, like I said, one of those teams that is like in the top 15 since 2000 with the total amount of wins. So it's at Pitt, and I'm giving them a half there.
I gave them a half as well. It's on the road at Pitt. Pitt plays defense.
And then this is one of the few years that all the Power 5 Florida schools play each other outside of Central Florida. I'm sorry. So Florida State, Miami, and Florida all play each other, and they got Miami at home. I got this as a half. It's a rivalry game.
I gave them the outright win.
And then Northern Alabama win. And then they travel to the Swamp, and I just don't think I think the quarterback play at Florida is going to have them reeling. And as I said in the SEC video, this is an outright win for Florida State.
Yeah, Florida just has way too many question marks at way too many serious positions. I gave them the outright win here.
All right, man. So I have Florida State at 10 wins. What do you have them as?
I'm a little bit better than you. I have them at 10.5. And we both like Florida State more than Vegas. Vegas agrees they're right there with Clemson at 9.5.
Got you. I could see that. I mean, I could see that Florida game being a half. That would take me down to 9.5. So that's got to be it. Unless they're saying at Wake Forest, because Wake Forest has beaten them in the last 2 years. So we shall see, man. On to Georgia Tech, man. Georgia Tech is another one of these teams I don't think is very good. Recent coaches changes, in the last couple of years. Maybe this guy's better than the 404 guy, but I still just don't think they have the Jimmys and Joes. So we start this off. This is actually their first game is the Chick-fil-A, one of the Chick-fil-A kickoff games. It's on a Friday. It's on that Friday. It's at August the 31st. So it's Louisville, and I think Louisville is going to get the outright win. So Tech is the loss right here.
Yeah, I gave Tech a loss.
All right. Then they get South Carolina State at home. Win.
Hey, man, South Carolina State, 2 years removed from the Celebration Bowl, but I'm going to go with Georgia Tech for the dub.
All right. And then they go to the Grove and play Ole Miss. I think that's a loss for Georgia Tech.
That might not only be a loss, but that thing might get ugly with the lane train rolling.
Yep. They got to travel to Wake Forest. I gave this a half.
I actually gave them the outright loss there going to Wake. I think they're very similar teams as far as what they're going to do this year, but going on the road, I don't like it.
All right. Then they play Bowling Green at home. Some of the MAC action here. I actually got this as a half. I think Bowling Green could well go into Atlanta and beat Georgia Tech.
Home game. I know it's MACtion, but I gave them a dub. It's probably going to be a noon high kickoff. Tragic.
All right. And then they travel to Miami. I got this as a loss.
I got that as a loss as well, going on the road to Miami.
All right. The off week, and then they get BC, Boston College, and UNC, North Carolina at home. I gave both of those a loss to Georgia Tech.
And I also gave both of those losses for Georgia Tech.
They travel to Virginia, who, like I said, the other team I don't think is going to be very good this year, so I gave them a half.
I actually gave them the outright win. I'm not high on Virginia at all.
No love for Tony Elliott. I got you. And then they go to Clemson the next week, and this is going to be a bloodbath. This is a loss for Georgia Tech.
Loss.
And then they got Syracuse at home. That's a push. I gave them a half.
I gave them the half there as well.
And then they got the two-time defending reigning national champions coming to town. That's the Georgia Bulldogs. And, of course, I have that as a loss for Georgia Tech.
And in the upset of the century, it's not going to happen. Georgia's going to beat the brakes off of them. I can't with a serious face pick Georgia Tech to win that game.
All right, so I got Georgia Tech with 3 wins.
I had them at 3.5.
What does Vegas say?
Vegas has them at 4.5.
How about that, man? Let's see. Let's look at it. I could see maybe that Boston College game being a push.
Maybe they're giving them half against y'all.
Yeah, okay. They All right, let's move on. Move it along. All right. We got Louisville, who is up next. I think Louisville is going to be one of the surprise teams in the ACC. I think Jeff Brom is gonna have that thing rolling. I'm not saying they're gonna challenge for the ACC, but give them a little bit of time. I think they will. Like I say, make some noise. They start out with Georgia Tech and Atlanta, as we just stated, and that's the outright win for Louisville.
I had it as the outright win.
Murray State, that's a win for Louisville.
That is a win. It'd be a lot different if they were playing basketball. That'd probably be something I'd want to watch, but on the gridiron, I think it might get ugly.
That's right. Then they play Indiana at Lucas Oil Field. I got this as a half.
That's cool that they're doing kind of like a kickoff type, playing in a bigger stadium, but I gave Louisville the outright win.
There it is. Boston College at home, that's a win.
I gave them the win.
At North Carolina State, that's a half.
I actually gave them the outright win at NC State.
All right. Then Notre Dame at home, I got that as a half.
I have it as a half as well, getting them at home.
Then they go to Pitt. I gave that a half.
I gave them a half as well at Pitt.
They get an off week, and then they play Duke, Virginia Tech, and Virginia all at home. I gave them 3 straight wins there.
I gave them 3 straight wins as well.
And then they travel to Miami. And I think at this point, like I said, I think if Cristobal's gonna have something together, then it should be towards the end of the season. I gave them a half here.
I gave them a half as well going to Miami. I think maybe they're having a better season than we're expected. Pressure gets to them, or maybe it's the other way around, but I think that could be a difficult game.
Yeah, and then the rivalry week game, Kentucky at home, I gave a half. I think both of these teams are going to have similar records, similar success in their respective conferences. I gave this a half.
And I actually gave it a loss and gave the win to Kentucky.
There it is. So I have Louisville with 9 wins. That's right. Count it, 9 wins.
And I had Louisville at 9.5.
Ooh, what did Vegas say?
8.5.
Hey, right on top. Hey, we know a little something. All right, man. All right, and then to finish this video off, man, we're gonna do Miami. Then we're gonna save the rest of the ACC teams for part 2. But let's go through Miami, man. Cristobal, second year, like I said, man, second year is normally when you see the biggest increase in production and play from the team under a new coach. Let's get into it and see what they got, man. They played Miami of Ohio first game. I got that as a win.
Win.
Texas A&M at home, I got that as a half.
I gave them the half there. Man, what a great story last year, but revenge on the mind. Like it's going to be tough, but I did give them the half. I think they can get it done.
All right, and then they got Bethune and then travel to Temple, some old Big East action for you that second week. I got both of those as a win for Miami, though.
Those are 2 wins.
Then they get an off week and they play Georgia Tech at home. I got that as a win.
And I gave them a win there as well.
All right, and then at UNC, I gave them a half there.
I actually gave them the outright loss at UNC.
All right, and then Clemson comes to town, and I gave this a half. Like I said, I think Clemson should be favored and is the better team, but it is at home and mid-season, so hopefully, Cristobal can put some stuff together and make it a competitive game. I gave him a half.
I gave Clemson the win.
All right, Virginia the next week, I gave that a win for Miami.
Win for Miami.
Then they travel to NC State. That's a half.
I gave them the half there as well.
And then at Florida State, the rivalry, like I said earlier, that's a half.
I gave it to Florida State.
And then Louisville, again, that's a half.
And I gave them the half there as well.
And then they travel to Boston College to finish the season off. And as we stated earlier, I gave Miami the outright win here.
And I gave that a half.
Now, this is one of the ones when I'm going through them, the stat guy looks up the win totals from Vegas. We use VegasInsider.com. No, we're not sponsored by them. Just letting you know where we get our information so you can double check it. Sometimes when I'm looking and I come up, like I do the games, I go through the schedule and then I see the total. I'm like, that's off. When I saw the Miami total, I was like, that's definitely not going to be Vegas. So I got Miami with 9 wins.
Tragic. I had Miami with 7 wins. Vegas is at 7.5. And I was close to having Miami at 6 wins.
Listen, I am super off. So you said Vegas got him at 7.5?
Yeah.
So I got to find a game and a half to take away?
Well, the half is for sure Clemson not pushing. down in Miami.
Yeah. So we'll say we'll out. So that'll take that would if per se that would take me down to 8.5. The Clemson.
And didn't you have them pushing against Florida State as well?
Yep. So that's they probably got Florida State beating them. So that'll take it down to 7.5. Just like that. I mean, that'll take it down to 8.
Close enough.
Like the wins that I gave them, maybe they didn't. Maybe they split with Florida State, gave Clemson the outright win, and then gave Texas A&M the win over Miami because they got Bobby Petrino down there at Texas A&M. They're thinking the offense is going to be better, and that Texas does actually have more recruiting rankings talent than Miami. So who knows? There it is, man. The ACC first part of the ACC win totals for you, man. I'm Coach I. He's the stat guy. Let us know in the comments what you think, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Fan Addict, we out of here.
Peace.
We got it jumping like it's that valley. I call my dogs out the pound, let's go eat. Turn on the Fan Addict, let's have a debate. Who really hold down the Southeast from state to state? What team hungry gonna eat everything up off they plate?